Have you ever wondered why two people of the same age can look and feel so completely different? One person in their 70s is vibrant, full of energy, traveling, and chasing after grandchildren. Another at that same age can barely move and is plagued by constant health complaints. Today we're going to discuss a truth hidden from most people. Over 1,000 years ago, the legendary physician Avicenna uncovered a startling secret. He realized that the primary cause of rapid aging isn't diet or genetics. It's the words we speak every single day. In this video, we'll reveal the hidden reality of how your own speech can become a deadly poison for your body. You'll learn which phrases you should never say, especially once you reach 70. I promise this information will completely transform your perspective on health. But before we dive in, let me know in the comments. Have you ever noticed how your mood directly affects how you feel physically? To truly grasp the depth of this wisdom, we need to look back at history. Ibn Sina, better known in the West as Avicenna, was one of the most brilliant physicians and philosophers of the medieval world. Though he lived 1,000 years ago, his medical teachings remained the gold standard in Europe for centuries. Avicenna didn't just prescribe herbs and tinctures. He treated the person as a whole, believing that the soul, mind, and body are inextricably linked. His writings clearly state that negative emotions and words can trigger actual physical disease. Today, modern science calls this psychosomatics. Modern researchers are now confirming what Avicenna knew all along. Our words shape our thoughts shape our emotions, and those emotions trigger hormonal responses in the body. After the age of 70, this mechanism becomes incredibly sensitive. A single destructive word can be the tipping point that accelerates the aging process. Let's take a closer look at exactly what these words are. Let's talk about a single word that has the power to destroy us from within. A word you likely hear every day. I'm talking about the word old that many people, once they reach their 70s, start labeling themselves as elderly or past their prime. They say things like, "I'm too old for that," or "My time has passed." On the surface, these phrases seem harmless. In fact, many believe that calling themselves old is simply being honest, a sign of maturity or facing reality. But the great physician Avicenna saw it differently, and modern science now proves him right. When you call yourself old, you are issuing a direct command to your brain. You are consciously triggering a program of decline within your own body. Picture this. Someone looks in the mirror, notices a few new wrinkles, and sighs, "I've aged so much." In that very moment, the nervous system obediently sends a signal to every internal organ. The brain decides that the active phase of life is officially over. Your metabolism begins to slow. Muscle tone fades, and your immune system weakens. Your body is always listening to its master. If the master says they are old, the body prepares to wither. Avicenna taught his students that age is not a number, it is a state of spirit. It is time to remove that word from your vocabulary forever. Now let's look at the second dangerous phrase, one that acts like an invisible poison. It's the words, "It's too late for me." It's heartbreaking how often people miss out on life's joys because of this mindset. They shy away from learning how to use a new smartphone, they skip trips into nature, or they stop making new friends. And it's all hidden behind one convenient excuse. "I'm too old to change now." There is a destructive myth at play here. The idea that once you hit 70, your only job is to sit in a chair and rest as if the time for an active life has passed. But let's debunk that right now. When you tell yourself it's too late, you are voluntarily closing doors. You are starving your brain of new information. The brain is like a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it begins to wither and weaken. Just look at the people who start learning a new language or pick up computer skills at 80. Their eyes sparkle and their minds stay sharp. By telling yourself, it's too late, you are literally blocking the flow of energy in your body. As the great physician Avicenna taught, when energy stops moving, it leads to stagnation in the organs, and stagnation always leads to disease. Life continues until your very last breath. It is never too late to learn something new, to enjoy a delicious meal, or to share a smile with a stranger. Replace that toxic phrase with a better one. Tell yourself, I finally have the time for this. Feel how your entire mood shifts just by changing those words. Now let's look at the third verbal trap. It often disguises itself as harmless nostalgia or a sweet sense of longing. I'm talking about the phrase, things were so much better back in my day. There is nothing wrong with remembering your youth. However, there is a very thin and dangerous line here. It's one thing to share a fond story from the past with your grandkids, but it's another thing entirely to constantly devalue the world we live in today. Many people over 70 fall into a cycle of chronic dissatisfaction. They criticize young people, modern food, and the way the world works now. There's a common myth that being grumpy is just a natural part of aging, that it's harmless or even a good way to blow off steam. In reality, this mindset is a direct path to deep depression and heart disease. When you constantly insist that the past was better, you are psychologically refusing to live in the present. You are essentially telling the world, I don't like it here anymore. I want to go back. But there is no way back. This creates a powerful internal conflict, and the body physically feels this rejection of reality. Think of the person who sits on a park bench for hours, feeling bitter and resentful toward every passerby. That anger spikes blood pressure and wears down the cardiovascular system. The ancient physician Avicenna once wrote that finding joy in the present moment is the best medicine for the heart. Accept the world as it is today. Every era has its own pros and cons. Stop comparing the past to the present. Instead, look for a reason to be happy right now, in this very moment. Tell yourself, today is a beautiful day, and I'm glad to be here to live it. The next mental trap strikes at the very core of our vitality. It's the phrase, I'm so tired of this life. These words are catastrophic for your well-being. They're often spoken in moments of deep despair, loneliness, or physical pain. It's true. Getting older brings its challenges, from health issues to personal loss. But speaking these words aloud is something you must never do. There is a common myth that venting this way brings relief, as if you're simply blowing off steam. In reality, the effect is exactly the opposite. When you say, I'm tired of living, your subconscious hears it as a command to shut down. It is, quite literally, a program for self-destruction. The body begins to disable its own defense mechanisms. After all, why fight off an infection or repair damaged cells if the owner no longer wants to be here? A clear example of this is how quickly people fade away once they lose their sense of purpose. They may be relatively healthy physically, but they retreat to their beds and simply give up. Their bodies are just following their words. In Eastern medicine, it is believed that such phrases block the flow of qi, our vital life energy. If you are struggling, if you feel truly exhausted, learn to say it differently. Say, I am tired today. I need to rest and regain my strength. Can you feel the difference? You are acknowledging a temporary state of fatigue, not rejecting life itself. Life is a precious gift, and dismissing it is dangerous at any age. Always leave room for the hope of a better tomorrow. The fifth part of our study focuses on how we talk about our health. The most damaging thing we can say is, "I'm a sick person," or variations like, "Everything hurts," and "I'm falling apart." It is very common to hear people, especially as they get older, spending hours discussing their diagnoses in waiting rooms or on long phone calls with friends. There is a widespread myth that dwelling on every ache and pain brings sympathy and support. People believe that by listing every ailment, they will find a sense of emotional relief. However, the legendary physician Avicenna strictly forbade his patients from constantly talking about their illnesses. He understood the law of focus. Whatever we concentrate on grows. When you repeatedly say, "I am sick," you are reinforcing that identity at a cellular level. Think of it this way. Imagine someone with a minor ache in their knee. If they call 5 different friends and vividly describe how much they are suffering, by the end of the 5th conversation, that knee will actually hurt significantly more. The brain amplifies the pain signals because your own words have instructed it to do so. You have allowed the illness to take center stage in your mind. Instead of identifying with the illness, focus on the process of healing. Use phrases like, "I'm currently looking after my health," or "My body is in the process of recovery." Stop defining yourself by your diagnosis. You are not your medical records. You are a living human being, and your body is naturally wired for balance and restoration. The 6th destructive phrase is just one word: impossible. Once you hit your 70s, you start hearing it everywhere. It's impossible to fix these joints. It's impossible to find a good doctor. It's impossible to enjoy life on such a small pension. People end up building an invisible wall around themselves made of these impossibles. The biggest trap here is mistaking a past negative experience for an absolute truth. Someone fails once and they assume every door is now permanently locked. But using the word impossible is really just a form of spiritual laziness. It's a way of dodging responsibility for your own life. After all, why bother fighting or even doing your daily stretches if you believe nothing can ever change? Think of the incredible people who have recovered from massive strokes. Doctors told them they would never walk again, but they refused to even say that word. They believed in their own strength. They pushed through the pain, and they eventually stood back up on their own 2 feet. The great physician Avicenna once said that the human body possesses massive hidden reserves. These reserves stay dormant until we truly need them. The word impossible acts like a concrete slab, keeping those inner powers buried deep inside. Cross that word out. Replace it with a question: how can I make this better? When you ask a question, you flip a switch in your brain. You force it to hunt for solutions instead of giving up. And believe me, those solutions will come, as long as you stay open to finding them. Now, let's move on to the 7th health destroyer: gossip, and the constant habit of judging others. We've all heard it. They have no shame, the neighbors are awful, or the government is corrupt. It might seem like these words have nothing to do with your physical well-being, but that is a dangerous misconception. Judgment is a slow-acting poison. There is a common myth that by criticizing others, we somehow elevate ourselves or act as crusaders for justice. But the reality is quite different. Whenever you speak ill of others, your body experiences intense stress. Your system gets flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone. Think of an elderly person watching the news and shouting at the TV. Their face flushes, their pulse quickens, and their breathing becomes shallow. They are literally poisoning their own bloodstream with stress hormones over people they don't even know. The ancient physician Avicenna understood the profound link between a pure mind and a healthy body. He taught that malice burns a person from within, just like fire. When you live in a state of judgment, you are damaging your own heart and your own liver. Let others live their lives and make their own mistakes. Focus on your own inner harmony instead. If you can't say something kind about a person or a situation, it is better to stay silent. Save your energy for building things up, not tearing them down. Practice kindness, even when it feels difficult. You will find that the world reflects that peace back to you. The 8th category of dangerous words centers on the feeling of being unwanted. The phrase, "nobody needs me," is one of the harshest sentences a person can pass on themselves. We often hear these words after retirement, or once the children have grown up and moved away. It stems from a persistent myth that our worth is tied solely to how useful we are to others, that if we aren't working or providing for a family, we've lost our purpose. That is a cruel and fundamentally wrong belief. When you say, "nobody needs me," you devalue the very essence of your life. You forget the most important person who needs you, vitally needs you, and that person is yourself. Think of someone who spent their entire life caring for others, only to find themselves alone in an empty home. They often begin to wither away, simply because they never learned how to live for themselves. This is when memory begins to fade and apathy sets in. Ancient wisdom teaches that every stage of life has its own unique purpose. The years beyond 70 are meant for contemplation, spiritual growth, and the passing on of wisdom. Now, to share that wisdom, you must first find peace within yourself. You are needed by this world simply because you are here. Your smile, your experience, and your calm presence can be a pillar of strength for those around you. So, stop the self-pity. Instead, start saying, "I matter to myself, and I treasure every single day." Go out and do the things you never had the time for before. The 9th deadly habit for your health is harboring old grudges. It manifests in thoughts like, "I will never forgive them," or through the constant replaying of past conflicts in your mind. Resentment is a heavy burden, a stone you've chosen to carry around your neck for years. Many people fall for the myth that refusing to forgive is a way to punish the offender. They believe their anger somehow harms the person who wronged them. But the bitter truth is that the other person has likely moved on, living their life and perhaps forgetting you even exist. Meanwhile, you are the one destroying your health every time you relive that pain. In the field of psychosomatics, chronic resentment is a well-known trigger for kidney stones, gallstones, and even cancer. Your body is quite literally crystallizing your unspoken rage. The ancient physician Avicenna compared a long-held grudge to a festering wound. Every time you dwell on that old hurt, you are ripping the bandage off and refusing to let yourself heal. Forgiveness isn't for the person who hurt you. It is a vital necessity for your own survival. It clears the space for clean, healing energy. Saying, "I forgive and I let go," is one of the greatest acts of love you can show your own body. Stop being a hostage to the past. Drop the weight. Choose to let your soul breathe freely in a stage of life where inner peace is far more important than any old score. Number 10, and perhaps the most somber of all, is the constant anticipation of the end. We often hear phrases like, "My time is almost up," I won't be here much longer, or I've already got one foot in the grave. Many people repeat these words with haunting regularity, sometimes even masking them with a bit of dark humor. The common myth is that this mindset somehow prepares us for the inevitable, that it's a philosophical way to face aging. But physiologically, this acts as a self-destruction protocol. You are essentially signaling your cellular intelligence to shut down all restorative processes. Why would your body bother regenerating cells or healing tissue if it believes the host is already checking out? A clear example of this can be seen in any hospital. Two patients with the exact same diagnosis can have completely different outcomes. The one who is busy making plans for next year is the one who pulls through. Meanwhile, the one who constantly speaks of their demise often fades away. The legendary physician Avicenna never allowed his patients to speak of death in his presence. He believed that words carry a powerful energy that can literally draw events toward us. When you joke about your own passing, your body doesn't understand the irony. It perceives it as a direct command to stop trying. It is time to change that destructive narrative. Start talking about your plans. They don't have to be grand. Focus on the small things. Growing a new flower on the windowsill, finishing a sweater, or simply waiting for the arrival of spring. Plan for life, not for the end. Tell yourself clearly and out loud, I still have many bright days ahead of me. The 11th mistake is the refusal to keep growing. It's when we say things like, I don't need anything new, or leave that technology to the younger generation. This is a classic sign of mental rigidity. Many people buy into the myth that as we age, our brains lose the ability to absorb new information. We've come to accept it as normal when an older person struggles with a new remote or an ATM. But neurobiology has proven the opposite. Your brain can form new neural connections at any age, as long as you give it the right stimulus. When you say, I'm done learning, you're essentially fast-tracking cognitive decline. Think of it like this. If you stop walking, your leg muscles will atrophy. Your brain works the exact same way. By refusing to understand how a smartphone works, you aren't just being stubborn. You are isolating yourself from the world. The ancient physician Avicenna called ignorance a disease of the mind, and urged people to seek knowledge until their very last breath. Resisting change creates deep-seated stress in your nervous system, eventually making you fear the world around you. Instead of retreating into your shell, try saying, this looks interesting. Let me see if I can figure it out. Even if you don't master it right away, the simple act of learning increases blood flow to your brain cells. It is, quite literally, the best way to prevent Alzheimer's. Curiosity is the ultimate sign of a youthful spirit. Don't stifle it with your own words. The 12th destroyer is the language of total defeat. Phrases like, I just don't have the strength anymore. Now it's a simple fact of life that your energy at 70 isn't what it was at 20. But here, we run into a dangerous myth, the idea that by constantly vocalizing our weakness, we'll somehow attract more care and support from those around us. In reality, these words act like a self-imposed spell, draining whatever energy you have left. When you tell yourself, I have no strength, your subconscious accepts it as an absolute truth. It literally signals your muscles to give up. Think of someone heading out to the store. If they tell themselves they're exhausted before they even leave, they'll be winded by the time they reach the front door. But if they think, I'll just take a gentle stroll and get some fresh air, the journey becomes effortless. Ancient Eastern wisdom, which influenced great healers like Avicenna, teaches us that energy follows focus. By obsessing over your fatigue, you only amplify it. The key isn't to complain about a lack of resources, but to manage the ones you have. So, change the narrative. Instead of declaring defeat, try saying, "Today, I'm going to move at my own comfortable pace." Or, "I am saving my energy for what truly matters." You aren't powerless. You've simply switched to power-saving mode. Respect your body and stop programming it for failure. Remind yourself that the strength is there. You're just choosing to use it mindfully and only for the things that bring you joy. The 13th verbal trap is the victim mentality. It shows up in phrases like, "What did I do to deserve this?" Or, "Why is life so unfair to me?" We usually hear these words when health declines or financial troubles hit. There is a common myth that the universe or God is punishing us for our sins through illness. This leads people to dig through their past, searching for the reason behind their suffering. But this mindset strips you of your power. When you ask, "Why me?" you are stepping into the role of a helpless victim. You stop looking for a way out. Consider how two different people might react to the exact same diagnosis. One cries and asks the heavens why this is happening to them, and they give up. The other asks, "What do I need to change in my life right now?" They start eating better, they start moving, and they take action. The great physician Avicenna always told his patients that illness is not a punishment. It is a signal. It is your body telling you that your internal balance has been disrupted. Your body isn't attacking you. It is asking for your help. Stop looking for someone to blame for your ailments. Remove words like punishment and unfair fate from your vocabulary. Replace them with constructive thoughts. Tell yourself, "This is a challenge, and I will find a way through it." Shifting from being a victim to being the creator of your own life works true healing miracles, even when conventional medicine has lost hope. Section 14 addresses a profound challenge: the tendency to devalue our own lives. We sometimes hear people say heartbreaking things like, "My life was a waste," or "I never accomplished anything." These feelings usually come from the trap of comparison, looking at a successful neighbor or someone on a screen and feeling small. There is a common myth that a successful life is measured only by wealth or high-ranking titles. If someone spent their career as a dedicated engineer or a teacher, they might feel like a nobody in their later years. Now, this is a deep misconception. When you say those words, you are dealing a crushing blow to your own mental well-being. You are essentially erasing the meaning of decades of existence. Consider this. A person might raise 3 wonderful children, build a home, and plant a beautiful garden. Yet they still see themselves as a failure because they weren't a high-level executive. This constant self-criticism can even lead to physical illness and heartache. The philosopher Avicenna taught that true peace of mind is impossible without gratitude for the journey we have traveled. Your life is unique and invaluable. You have survived difficult times. You have loved, cried, and found joy. That is a monumental achievement in itself. Never allow yourself to dismiss your own path. Stop saying your life was in vain. Instead, replace those destructive thoughts with an acknowledgement of your worth. Say it out loud. "I have lived a long, challenging, and deeply important life. My experience is priceless." Take pride in the person you have become. Number 15 on our list of dangerous verbal patterns is the constant fear of the future. It sounds like this: "I'm terrified of what tomorrow holds. I have no idea what's coming next." or simply, it's scary just to be alive. Fear is the most destructive emotion we experience. There is a common myth that worrying about the future somehow helps you prepare for it. People obsess over negative news and debate upcoming crises, mistakenly believing this gives them a sense of control. But in reality, anxiety doesn't protect you from tomorrow's problems. It only robs you of today's peace. When you constantly voice your fears, you push your nervous system to its breaking point. Insomnia is a perfect example. You lie down to sleep, but your mind keeps replaying worst-case scenarios. As a result, you wake up feeling drained, and your blood pressure spikes. That constant rush of adrenaline eventually wears down your cardiovascular system. The ancient physician Avicenna wrote that fear chills the body and weakens its natural defenses. Fearing the future is pointless because it hasn't happened yet. You are sacrificing your actual health for purely imaginary problems. Stop giving your fears a voice. Stop feeding the panic. Instead of saying, "I'm afraid," try saying, "I will handle any challenges if and when they arrive, but right now, all is well." Bring your focus back to the present moment. Look around you. You are in a warm room, you have food, and in this very second, you are safe. Mistake number 16 is the aggressive rejection of help. We've all heard the phrases, "I can do it myself," "Leave me alone," or "I don't need your pity." Often, this stems from a sense of false pride. It can be incredibly difficult for older adults to admit they need support, fueled by the myth that accepting help makes you weak or dependent. Many fear becoming a burden to their children, so they push their care away with harsh words. But this only leads to a heartbreaking result. When you say, "I don't need anyone," you are building a wall of loneliness around yourself. Consider this example. An elderly woman with painful joints refuses her son's offer to help clean the house. She struggles, hauls heavy buckets, and eventually suffers a heart attack from the strain. This could have been avoided by simply accepting his kindness with gratitude. The great physician Avicenna taught that humans are social beings. Helping one another is part of our very nature. Having the grace to accept help is a sign of true inner strength, not weakness. When you lash out at your loved ones, you hurt them and create unnecessary tension in your relationships. Try replacing that defensive, "I'll do it myself," with words of thanks. Try saying, "Thank you, I'd really appreciate your help." Let your children show their love for you. Share your burdens with them, and you'll find it much easier to breathe. Pride destroys, but gratitude heals. Point 17 focuses on the trap of endless regret. We've all heard that nagging thought, "What if I had done things differently?" People can spend hours dwelling on how they should have chosen a different career, married someone else, or moved to another city. There's a common myth that overanalyzing past mistakes makes us wiser. But in reality, especially as we get older, ruminating on what cannot be changed is nothing more than self-torture. As the saying goes, it's like trying to saw sawdust. When you focus on these thoughts, you are pouring massive amounts of mental energy into a void. Imagine a man who fails to see the beauty of his current family because he is still mourning a first love that didn't work out. This creates a state of chronic longing. Avicenna, along with many Eastern philosophers, urged us to accept our destiny without complaint. Understand this: everything that happened to you was the only possible path for your growth at that moment. You didn't have the experience or the knowledge then that you have now. It's time to stop punishing yourself with what-ifs. Let that phrase go. Tell yourself, I made the best choice I could with what I knew at the time, and I have no regrets. Embrace your story in its entirety, the mistakes and the victories alike. Only by fully accepting your past can you find true peace of mind and lasting health for the years to come. The 18th destroyer of health is the habit of devaluing medicine and the healing process. We often hear people say things like, "Doctors don't know anything. Pills are just toxic chemicals," or "Hospitals only make things worse." While medicine isn't perfect, total denial is a dangerous path. There is a common myth that life experience alone makes us wiser than any specialist. People often use these phrases to justify self-medication or to avoid seeking professional help altogether. However, when you say doctors won't help me, you strip yourself of the powerful placebo effect. You're essentially telling your brain that any treatment will be useless. For example, if a patient takes blood pressure medication but constantly insists that it doesn't work, the body may actually struggle to absorb it. A psychological block can literally interfere with the physical healing process. The great physician Avicenna once said that half of a successful recovery depends on the patient's faith. Faith in their doctor, and faith in the cure. Without that belief, even the most effective treatments can lose their power. So, stop criticizing doctors and the medical field. If you don't trust one specialist, simply find another who resonates with you. Change your inner dialogue to something more positive. Try saying, "I am finding the right ways to support my body," or "This treatment brings me relief and strength." Your belief is one of the most powerful keys to your health. Point number 19. Labeling your own mind. We've all heard it, or said it. "My memory isn't what it used to be," or "My brain just doesn't work anymore." It's common for people to use age as an excuse for every little lapse. Misplace your keys. "Oh, I'm just getting old. Can't recall an actor's name. My brain is shrinking." There is a persistent myth that memory decline after 70 is an inevitable part of aging that we just have to accept. But modern science has proven otherwise. Neuroplasticity stays with us well into our later years. The real problem is that when you say, "I have a bad memory," you are giving your brain a direct order to stop trying. Why should it work hard if the boss has already given up? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When someone constantly complains about their memory, they stop making an effort. They stop reading, they stop learning, and as a result, their cognitive abilities truly do decline. It's a vicious cycle. Even centuries ago, the physician Avicenna advised his older patients to keep their minds sharp by solving puzzles and engaging in philosophy. Never criticize your brain out loud. Instead of saying, "I forgot," try saying, "It'll come to me in a moment." Give yourself time. Treat your intellect with respect. Use positive affirmations like, "My mind is clear and my memory is sharp." Praise yourself for every word or name you successfully recall. If you treat your brain with gratitude, it will reward you by serving you well for much longer. And finally, we come to the 20th and final point, the pitfall of ingratitude. The most toxic mindset one can have is the belief that the world owes me. It's the feeling that the government owes you a massive pension, that your children must call every single day, or that everyone is obligated to give up their seat for you. Expecting the world to cater to you simply because of your age leads to deep disappointment. The myth here is that age alone is an achievement that demands unconditional reverence. But true respect is earned through wisdom and kindness, not through demands or conflict. When you live with an "I am owed" attitude, you remain in a state of constant resentment, because reality will never live up to those inflated expectations. For example, imagine an older person who gets angry because their children visited for only 1 day instead of 2. Instead of enjoying the time they did have, they ruin the mood for everyone with guilt trips and reproaches. This bitterness immediately spikes your blood pressure and disrupts your digestion. The great physician Avicenna considered gratitude to be the highest virtue, a true medicine for the soul. Try replacing the phrase, "you owe me," with "thank you." Learn to be grateful for the little things, the warmth of the sun, the fact that you can still walk, or a simple phone call from a grandchild. Genuine gratitude triggers the release of joy hormones like dopamine and serotonin. It is nature's best medicine. Say thank you to the world, and you will find that the world begins to care for you in much more generous ways. So, we've finally reached the heart of the matter. Now you know the incredible secret of the great Avicenna. The words you speak are far more than just sounds. They are powerful biological triggers. Every time you say, "I'm getting old," "I'm exhausted," or "it's too late for me," you are effectively flipping the switch on accelerated aging. Shocking, isn't it? What we often dismiss as harmless complaining is, in reality, a self-destructive program. The weight of this discovery cannot be overstated. Once you realize this, you hold incredible power over your own health. You can halt the process of decline right now, simply by shifting your vocabulary. Trade the language of illness for the language of health. Swap resentment for gratitude. Replace fear with a renewed curiosity for life. Start speaking about yourself with positivity and respect for your body and your journey. To wrap things up, remember this key takeaway. Age is not a life sentence. Your speech is either your greatest healer or your swiftest executioner. Choose your words wisely. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you found this information valuable, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more secrets to a long and healthy life. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these self-sabotaging phrases do you catch yourself or your loved ones saying most often? I look forward to reading your stories and continuing the conversation there.